Primetime Sports with Scott Alexander is underwritten by Task Performance.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans.
Fall in love with autumn with PJ's new seasonal lattes. Our pumpkin latte brings you all the flavors of a pumpkin pie with hints of cinnamon and nutmeg, like your favorite holiday dessert in a cup. And our s'mores latte with flavors of toasted marshmallows, warm milk chocolate, and graham cracker cinnamon is sure to bring back campfire memories. The PJ's Fall Seasonal Lattes, available at your local PJ's only for a limited time.
Hey, New Orleans, get ready for some rugby. There's a new pro sports team in town, and it's NOLA Gold, bringing world-class rugby to the Crescent City. The game is fast, the hits are hard, the fan experience is for real. Season tickets, lifetime tickets, and game day passes are all available at nolagoldrugby.com. I'm John Goodman, and I'll see you in the scrum.
Well, here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports. Hey, I'm your host, Scott Alexander, and I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. And Christmas is right around the corner, so I hope everybody enjoys the next few weeks before Christmas. But boy, the Saints have given us a Christmas here in New Orleans. How about your New Orleans Saints? Hey, they went on Turkey Day and they blasted the Atlanta Falcons in a game that's usually pretty close. Well, they methodically took care of the Dirty Birds. They got the 31-10 lead, ended up coasting in to a 31-17 victory, and now that's 10 wins in a row. That's 10 wins in a row. This is New Orleans Saints. That's the second most in franchise history after that 13-game win streak to start the Super Bowl year in 2009. We know how great 2011 was until that NFC divisional game against the 49ers, but this has the feeling of special. You see the turkey legs getting eaten by Mark Ingram and obviously Cam Jordan. Both those guys came in together in the 2011 draft as first-round picks, and I know they are enjoying this as much as anyone on this team since they weren't part of that Super Bowl run themselves. But the Saints, they have the Dallas Cowboys this Thursday night. I will be at that game in Jerry World. That's going to be tough. It's Thursday night. The Cowboys are going to be pumped up. They're trying to win their own division, much less. They're all tied up at 6-5 with the Redskins, and that should be an interesting battle. The Saints, they just keep writing the news stories each and every week. This particular game, they had 4 receivers that caught passes for touchdowns that all were undrafted free agents, all making under $1 million each. Remarkable job by Drew Brees and Sean Payton and company. Hey, moving on to LSU. What a heartbreaking weekend this was. I knew this game was going to be tough. Texas A&M had a lot to play for. Jimbo Fisher was the offensive coordinator for the Tigers back when they won their 2003 national championship. And that was under Nick Saban. He stayed on the staff and won the 2007 national championship as an offensive coordinator under Les Miles. Well, Jimbo Fisher went on to win his own national championship as head coach of the Florida State Seminoles, and now he is in College Station for the first year with the Texas A&M Aggies, and this guy knows how to coach, and it was a great game. We all know the heartbreak, 7 overtimes. We know what happened. They should have won it in regulation. Lots of calls didn't go their way. I'm not going to have sour grapes here. It was a tough, hard-fought game, and if you're a Tiger fan, you're just as proud of these Tigers with the loss as you would have been with the win. Kudos to Texas A&M. They played hard. They deserved to win. LSU deserved to win. Only one team could win, and that happened to beat Texas A&M this week. Hey, listen, LSU still has a lot to play for. They have that 10-win season they're playing for. They can win a bowl game. They'll be in the top 10 most likely. They're sitting at 12 right now. And here's the thing. They can still get that big bowl. All they need probably is a loss by Texas to Oklahoma, which that's more of a toss-up game, or Northwestern to Ohio State. If both those teams lose, you can guarantee LSU is going to be in just as good of a bowl as they would have been before this loss. If both of those teams win, they might not be. They might be looking at kind of the same old thing as lately, like the citrus and all that. But don't count out the LSU Tigers. They've had a fantastic season. Everybody expected 7-8 wins. They pulled out 9. And if you look at the 2 games they lost on the road, they had fourth quarter leads late in both games, Florida and Texas A&M. They're young. They'll be better. Alabama was the only consensus loss on that schedule. Don't forget the 3 top 10 wins and also a couple more in the top 25. Hey, Tulane Green Wave, I have nothing but jubilation for this team. And I'm so happy for head coach Willie Fritz and his squad because they had to win this game against Navy. Remember, they were sitting at 2-5, and they came back and won 4 of their last 5 games, including a couple pretty good upsets. And this game was a game a few thought they should win. They got down, but they lost a lot of games in the last couple of years of being ahead and getting teams come back from behind and beating them. Well, they turned the tables on this one. They came back and not only won, they had a chance to tie it and put it in overtime. They said, we're going for 2, and they did it. There's the catch right there, wide open, a great play, a great pass by Justin McMillan, and Tulane should be going bowling now at 6-6. Hey, by the way, they've improved their wins from 3 to 5 to 6, but more importantly, they've improved their conference wins in 3 years under Fritz from 1 to 3 to 5, and that's where the improvement should be looked at, and that's been remarkable. Congratulations to Green Wave. Also, congratulations to our good friends down at Nichols. How about the Nichols Colonels? They won their first playoff game in FCS in 32 years. They beat San Diego convincingly this weekend, and they throttled them. There's our guy, Chase Forcade. Well, he's the quarterback from Rummel, and we know all the great players they have from the New Orleans area and all around the south part of Louisiana. But congratulations to them. They go to Eastern Washington. That's going to be a tough one. That is a perennial power. Good luck for them. And how about our Pels? This is crazy, man. I mean, this is the streakiest team. They started off winning 4 in a row. They got you all excited. And then they lose 6 in a row, and they get you all bummed out. And then they win 5 out of 6, and you're like, we're on fire again. And now they just lost their 4th in a row last night to the Boston Celtics. They lost this heartbreaker you see the picture of right there, 121 to 120 to start this losing streak at Philadelphia. That's not a bad loss. But then you lose to the Knicks. You can't lose to the Knicks. And then you don't have Anthony Davis again. He's out, and you lose at Washington. You think they might be coming back last night and play spirited basketball. It did not happen as they lose a tough one to the Boston Celtics. It wasn't even really that close. The Celtics kind of strangled them. The Celtics have been on their own 4-game losing streak as well. So that is a bad loss, and they have to get this thing back because now they're 1 game under 500. How about the national news front? The college football playoff system might be in a pickle with 6 teams having worthy claims for the 4 playoff spots. You see Alabama right there. Win or lose, you know they're probably in this championship playoff. That Alabama could take care of one of those spots, meaning they could eliminate one of those 6 teams I mentioned by beating the Georgia Bulldogs this week in Saturday's SEC championship game. But what if Georgia wins? Then the pickle begins because Bama, well, they're likely going to be in the playoff just like last year. Remember, they lost to Auburn, and they weren't even in the SEC championship game, and they ended up winning all. Much like the year they lost to LSU in 2011. Weren't in the SEC championship game. They got in and won it all. So Bama is probably going to be in regardless. But how about this? The pickle begins because the Ohio State Buckeyes, who everybody left for dead, well, they absolutely throttled Michigan 62-39 this weekend. They blew them out. Everybody kind of counted them out, and they thought Michigan was it. Well, this game was played at the Horseshoe in Ohio State. What were people thinking? They knew, they should have known that Ohio State was going to come to play, and now they're squarely in the playoff picture, as are the Oklahoma Sooners, who, by the way, have one of the best offenses I've ever seen. They always seem to have a lot of offense, but they have no defense whatsoever. This game was exciting to watch. They won 59-56, more like a basketball score over West Virginia. They won that without the 7 overtimes. That was just a regulation game, much like the Monday night game we just saw against the Chiefs and Rams, but that is excitement. But both these teams will probably be on the outside looking in if Georgia loses to Alabama. If Georgia wins, I mean, if Georgia beats Alabama, if Georgia loses, then one of those two teams will probably take the spot. Because undefeated in Clemson and undefeated Notre Dame will have their spots locked up. Notre Dame's done. They don't have a conference championship game. They're an independent. But Clemson plays the Pitt Panthers on Saturday. That would be a monumental upset if they lost. But then again, remember when Pitt beat West Virginia? That's a 30-point underdog to let LSU get to the national championship game in 2007 against Ohio State. Crazy things happen this time of year. Hey, another college football news. Former Texas and Tulane head coach and LSU assistant, you remember that back in the day, Mack Brown, is going back to the place he coached in between the Green Wave and Longhorns. That's right, the North Carolina Tar Heels have just signed Mack Brown. And I, for one, couldn't be happier about it. I'm glad guys like Mack Brown, a national championship winner with the Longhorns, and Les Miles, a national championship winner with LSU, are back in the college football game. Of course, Les is going up to Lawrence, Kansas to coach the Jayhawks. Hey, on to college basketball. The 19th ranked LSU Tigers, at least they were 19th ranked. They lost a couple tight games in Orlando this weekend. Hey, they were up 9 to 13th ranked FSU, Florida State Seminoles, with just 3 minutes to go. They let that one slip between their fingers. Came back on Sunday, lost to a game Oklahoma State Cowboy team, and they are dropped out of the top 25. Hey, the Gonzaga Zags, how about that? I watched that game this past week. They are the new number one after their thrilling win over the Duke Blue Devils. We have a very unique show for you today, and I'm looking forward to it. We kind of got the local stuff out of the way. You know, we always have the players and the coaches and the former players and former coaches and all that. Well, today's different. I'm going to have some interesting folks here today. I've got a guy that is a New Orleans sports historian and author. His name is Derby Gisclair, and we're going to talk boxing because boxing's back in New Orleans. You saw at Regis Prograde what he's doing, and I used to go to a lot of boxing matches in the late 70s, early 80s when I was in junior high and high school. Big matches like Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hitman Hearns. Well, we're going to go way back because New Orleans was the epicenter of boxing back in the turn of the century, from the 19th century, 1800s into the 1900s, and we're going to talk to him about the great heavyweight champions of that time, the John L. Sullivans, the Jack Johnsons, all those guys, and into Jack Dempsey and some others. We're going to have fun with that. Also, this is crazy. I got a crazy story for you. A guy named James McDonald. He is called the Adventure Man because this guy runs around the country. He runs around the world. He couldn't walk for years. Now he runs, and he does it with a cause. He has a cape, and just trust me, stay tuned on this one. The story is incredible, and I can't wait to do this. And also, a guy named Mason Ginsberg. You always hear Jake Madison, right? Well, before Jake Madison, there was Mason Ginsberg coming on everybody's radio show. And he suggested, hey, we just use Jake. But Mason hasn't been on this TV show because he lives in Chicago. And before that, he lives in Austin. But he is a New Orleanian and loves the Pelicans. Has been writing for Bourbon Street Shot since they started. And we're going to talk some Pelicans with him because he happens to be in this week. And I've said, whenever you get in town, Mason, you get in touch with me and I want to have you on. And it happens to be this week. So that's your show this week, and I cannot wait. Stay tuned right here for Primetime Sports. Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. Since I talked a lot about the Saints in the Open, LSU, Tulane success, and of course Nichols. And hey, by the way, Lafayette, I got to give you guys props too. You are bowl eligible too. Congrats for the Raging Cajuns. Hey, we're going to go Pels right here because I have a guy that I've been wanting to get on this show since I started 3 years ago. And literally, you see Jake Madison on the show all the time. Well, it's because of Mason Ginsberg. Mason was the go-to guy. Bourbon Street Shots was the blog that they wrote about the Pelicans, and they did it better than anybody else. And they even became more read than a lot of the beat writers at one point. I'm not saying that now, but certainly at one point. And Mason Ginsberg was a frequent guest on my ESPN radio show, and he, suggested Jake, and now Jake seems to be a go-to guy here. But here's where it all began. Mason Ginsberg, you and Jake But welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you, thank you.
You and Jake were students together at Tulane?
So we weren't students together, but
Okay.
we both went to Tulane a couple years apart. Met through writing about the Pelicans just for fun, and we've become really good friends in the meantime.
So you've been writing on the the Hornets back then since 2010. What was your love of basketball and the NBA team here about?
Just love the sport. Growing up, I played baseball, basketball, and not really much of a football guy on the field. But it was just, I just love the game. It was kind of, you saw, and I'm a numbers-oriented person.
Yeah,
you saw the baseball analytics wave happen earlier, and I was a little young for that.
Yeah.
And didn't really but catch on. But the basketball kind of analytics wave.
Sabermetrics, Billy Ball, Billy Bean, and all that.
Yeah, I always felt like a kid when that was going on.
Right.
So.
Jeez, all right.
But yeah, so that kind of caught wave with basketball. It was always my kind of second favorite sport to baseball. But now I'm just kind of eat, sleep, breathe basketball.
When I first moved back to New Orleans in 2012, Bourbon Street Shots, which y'all, if you're a Hornets/Pelicans fan, you know all about Bourbon Street Shots. They write about the Pels, and they do it so well. What gave y'all the idea to put this together?
It's been going on for a while. It was Hornets 24/7 before. There's a long tenured group of guys that have been doing this, and Jake and I came on around 2011, I think it was.
Yeah.
And it's been cycles. I mean, none of these guys, we don't get paid for it. We do it, or at Bourbon Street Shots, we just kind of do it because we love it. And sometimes the real world takes over, and people leave, people move on to other things, and it's nice because we have a good reputation among the fans, and we just really enjoy it, and we have the ability to really bring on new guys that are interested in writing when other guys take off.
You guys are passionate about what you do. I mean, and for not getting paid for the amount of work you put in, it's pretty remarkable because, I mean, y'all have become a go-to for people that know the game and love the game because you care about it and you obviously know it as well. Kudos for that because I'm a basketball guy and I love it myself. As far as this Pelicans team, there are a lot of high hopes coming in. They've been so streaky. They started off 4-0. Everybody's like, hey, championship. Then they lose 6 in a row. They had some injuries and a hard road trip to help blame for that. Then they come back and win 5 out of 6, mostly games they should have and supposed to win. And now you lose 4 in a row and you're below 500 again, 10 and 11. I'm not pushing panic buttons, but where do you stand with this team right now?
No panic buttons. However, the recent stretch is
it's disappointing.
It's problematic, right? And so,
yeah.
I mean, they're 10 and 11. If you look at the Western Conference standings, it's still a mess. I mean, there are so many teams clustered together.
And look, the Rockets have basically the same record.
Yeah,
they had the best record in the NBA. That's what's crazy, right?
The division standings look backwards. I mean, you've got Memphis on top, and San Antonio's picked around where the Pelicans were, and then Dallas even's at 500. They're a half game ahead of New Orleans right now.
Right.
So it's kind of a mess, and I'm not worried about it yet, but there are some glaring signs that need to be addressed. But I don't think this is there's no reason to really be seriously concerned at this point.
I mean, you expected to have Elfrid Payton. I mean, listen, when he got signed, everybody's like, oh, he's going to be a good backup. And I'm like, I think he's going to be the starter. And when obviously Rondo elected to go to the Lakers, then you start seeing what he could do on a small scale because he got hurt. Then he came back and broke his finger. So now he's out for at least another 5 weeks, I imagine. Can this team continue and at least hover around 500 without him? Because they need a guy that can get up and go. Drew Holiday's playing the 1 and the 2, but they really don't have a pure point guard that they're playing regularly.
Yeah, and they want to keep Drew off the ball because partially because they've seen this team work well with a point guard, a pure point guard, and also because he's asked to do so much on both ends. He's their top defensive perimeter option. He's guarding. I mean, you saw him guard Kevin Durant in the playoffs last year, and so can they hover around 500? Yes, but at the same time, their schedule of the next month is. It's pretty light, and if you only hover around 500, you're probably taking a step back. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see them try to find somebody who can kind of replicate Payton's what Payton was doing for this team. But it's going to be tough. There's not a ton of assets to move for a deal like that.
I just saw Sheck Diallo in a picture there. He was on this show, young man, power forward, obviously out of Kansas, on the show right before the season started. He was talking about the big man rotation, and he's kind of on the outside looking in. He's getting some more minutes, but when you talk about Anthony Davis, the premier player in the league, there's LeBron, there's Durant, and then there's AD. Coupled up with Nico Mirotic, who I think helped save the season last year, and then you bring in Julius Randle. How is this 3-man rotation at the 4 and 5 going in your mind so far?
It's been great. I mean, even I think you noticed that Nico until last night went 6 of 11 from 3, but he's had kind of an off shooting year.
Yeah.
But it matters, but it's not that impactful in the sense that teams are still going to go guard him. He has gravity. Teams are going to rotate out to defend him.
They have to. They have to account for him.
And that's why he's such a perfect counterpart for Anthony Davis. And then you bring in Julius Randle, a guy who's kind of been the Swiss Army knife off the bench, or when AD's been hurt in the starting lineup. I think he's really fit in well. He's not going to match up against every team well, but as far as a third big goes, he's pretty much exactly what I think Dell Demps was looking for. And so when the opportunity arose, when the Lakers let him walk, the same day he was pretty much signed with the Pelicans. So
the albatross on this team has been the 3 for a bit. I mean, we know that they don't have a marquee 3. I mean, they tried to get Solomon Hill as a Band-Aid. That has not really worked out. He's not even getting minutes right now. They bring in Wesley Johnson in a preseason trade that many thought that was just a trade where they're going to cut him, and now he's starting and playing a lot of minutes. And you know, then obviously you had. When Alfred's healthy, you're probably going to have Etuan Moore and Drew Holiday in a 3-guard rotation there, along with the 2 bigs. And that a lot of NBA teams are doing that. Yep. But what is in your mind going on at that position? Because most teams have a guy that can score at the 3 and score at will. The Pelicans don't.
So I would maybe push back on that a little bit and say a big wing is the thing that every team wants because there's just not that many of them out there. I mean, you've got
like they used to be. I mean, they haven't been in a while, though.
Yeah, and so, I mean, you've got your LeBrons, you've got your Durants, but after that, there's just not a lot of guys that you really need a 6'8", 6'9" wing to guard. Obviously, it's a luxury because it's a scarcity, but the Pelicans had success last year with a 3-guard lineup.
Right there, he's the guy that's basically was playing that role.
Yeah, and Etuan Moore last year, a perfect example, because I think he's a fine defender. He's not a great defender, but he was asked to defend a lot lot of those guys. And Drew took on more of those responsibilities in the playoffs. But yeah, they've had to kind of work things out around the lack of a 3. But it's not going to burn you against a lot of teams. Once you get deeper into the playoffs, if they get there, that's when it's going to start to hurt. But I think all things considered, they're managing or have been managing well without that strong 3.
When this team's full strength, and last year they lost Boogie and then they went on a roll. They had 2 of the longest streaks in franchise history. I think they had a 10-gamer and a 9-gamer, correct, later in the season. And can this team go on that kind of roll once they kind of get their parts all together? I mean, Elfrid Payton back. Now, right now, I'm not worried about anything till we get to New Year. Remember, they were 20-20, I believe, on January the 10th. Yep. And then they went 32-14 before the Warriors series. That's playing some ball. Yep. Are they capable of that again?
They are, but at the same time, if you're banking on a full-strength Pelican squad, I mean, you and I have been around this team long enough. It just never
has happened. Yeah.
And I mean, it's a fair point. This team, when healthy, can play great basketball. The first 4 games are a small sample, but it gives us optimism for what can happen.
Sure.
But that said, I don't think you can go into have this mindset of, as long as we're fully healthy, we'll be fine, because that's just
not going to happen.
It's not realistic.
Sure.
So,
but they need this guy to be healthy.
They do. I think they realize that. If they lose AD for a long stretch, if they even lose Drew for a long stretch, I mean, it's killer to them. And so, and they realize that what they want to do is really add something around those 2 guys that can really help this team for the future.
As a whole, we talked about how the Western Conference. I mean, listen, the Warriors have 7 losses already. I mean, they almost got an 8th last night. They were down 17 at the half at home to Orlando. Granted, there's no Curry. Granted, there's no Draymond, but no Boogie, whatever. But you still have 2 of the greatest players on the planet, Klay Thompson and Durant, and they're struggling. So it's not just here in New Orleans. The Rockets had the 67-15 record last year, the best in all of basketball. They've already got 10 losses, 67-25. No, 15. Yeah, they're below 500 as well. What's going on in the Western Conference?
And Utah is the second last place in the West too, and a lot of teams thought they could get the 2 seed this year. And
sure.
So it's just there's just a lot of talent. I mean, it's an overly simplistic answer, but it's also, I think it's the right one. You've got so many teams. You look at Sacramento; they're playing
great basketball.
Memphis with Mike Conley healthy is playing great. I mean, it's just
and Garrett Temple from LSU, love it.
There's just so many. The West is so stacked. Even when they sent Jimmy Butler east, I mean, Minnesota is playing well with their new guys. They're
happier.
Yeah,
they're playing happy
they're
basketball.
Certainly happier.
Yeah,
so
that was a big thing with Butler, right?
Yeah, and so it's just tough top to bottom. But I think there will be some sort of separation as the season moves on. But what we saw last year, two wins separated 4 or 5 playoff seasons. So you can probably expect some of this to continue.
I mean, the Pels were a game out of third, and they ended up as the 6th seed in a game out of third, and they were really like a game or two from out of the playoffs. Can we expect that kind of craziness at the end again?
This is even crazier than it was last year at this time.
Oh, I mean, goodness.
I'm not going to say it's going to continue, but you're looking, and if you project kind of towards the trade deadline, who are the sellers? I mean, which of these teams are going to sell? I think even Sacramento, I think they don't own their first round pick this year, so they're not going to be selling either, even if they fall off. So it's a lot of teams are looking to win right now.
Mason, it's great to have you. You obviously, when I first moved back, you moved to Texas to go to grad school. Congratulations, graduating there. And you have a job in Chicago. So we set this up to whenever you're in town, I want to have you on. You happen to be this week. You went to the game last night. You're going again tomorrow night. And then on to Dallas. Maybe the Saints game. Maybe the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, should be a good week.
Hey, man, before you leave, go get some wine over here at Shays de la Shays, right there on Maple. You know the campus.
Yeah.
It's right between Carrollton and Broadway. And
like
this is, you're a Tulane grad. This is a Tulane graduate that owns this company. It's called Task Performance. You said you've never had this.
I've seen the logo, never owned one, so this is awesome.
Well, that won't be your last, I guarantee you.
Probably not.
Hey, man, I appreciate you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Keep up that great work. This is a thankless job. This guy's got a full-time job, and he still covers the Pelicans like he's a beat writer. I mean, he loves it. So enjoy his work. Check him out. He's got a podcast called In the Know, N-O. New Orleans, you get it? And it's about the Pelicans. If you love podcasts, check this one out, In the Know. And also go to bourbonstreetshots.com. You'll learn something, trust me. Hey, you want to learn something else? My next guest. Well, this is a story that you can't wait to hear because I can't wait to see him. His name is Jamie McDonald. He is the adventure man, and he runs all around the world. And I can't wait to talk to him because the story about how I got to know him is one that you're going to want to hear. Stay tuned right here on Primetime Sports.
Primetime Sports with Scott Alexander is underwritten by Task Performance.
The owners of the Delachaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At Mid-City Lane's the home of rock and roll.
Embracing New Orleans soul with style in fashion wear from NOLAshirts.com. Show off your love for one of America's unique cities with shirts, belts, and hats in a variety of colors and styles. NOLAshirts.com proudly celebrates the culture and embodies the spirit and determination of people from the Crescent City. The tradition lives on at NOLAshirts.com.
Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. I told you in the open this was going to be a little bit of a unique show, and I can't wait for this next segment. My next guest is called the Adventure Man. His name is Jamie McDonald. He's from Gloucester. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but that's in England. And he is now running across the United States, and I don't want to waste any more of my time. I'll just introduce you to you. Here's a book he's got, Adventure Man, and I'll let you tell the rest of it. Jamie McDonald.
Awesome,
What
Scott.
is good to see you, brother.
Do you know what? You actually pronounced Gloucester pretty good for an American.
Gloucester?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard of Gloucester. It goes in the news. We're famous for rolling cheese down a big hill, and everyone chases
I've
after
seen
it,
it.
and then they break their arms and legs.
No wonder you're an adventure man. You started doing that at a young age. All right, what's the name of this book? And tell us real quick about it.
It's called Adventure Man. Anyone can be a superhero. So it started really, I ended up spending most of my life in hospital as a kid.
Growing up?
Yeah, so I used to have a rare condition called trichomyelia, where symptoms meant like I couldn't move my legs.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
But when I was about 9 years old, my mum, she put this piece of string in the back garden. She said, "Do you want to play tennis?" I remember feeling like, not really, Mum. But I went out there and I started cracking the ball, and I just got this love for movement. You know, like a dog.
And that's the first time you started really moving?
It's when I started to move, yeah. You know, like a dog, when you throw a ball for a dog, it's like, I've got to go.
Yeah, you got to go.
You got to go.
And that was you.
Oh, it was me. And I got a lot of help from the hospital at that time. And yeah, so I had like this big, massive vision to be like the next big Roger Federer.
Right, okay.
When I was about 16. But
well, how old are you now? I'm just curious.
I'm about 32 now.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I had a big dream to be like the next big Roger Federer, but it turns out that I was absolutely rubbish at tennis.
It's hard. It's hard. It's a hard sport.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fun sport, but to be that good, yeah. So then you said you're going to start running?
Yeah, well, so then I ended up, I saved up to put a deposit on a house, and I saved up £20,000, which I think is about 30,000 US dollars.
Yeah, when I was over there, it was 40. Back that was a long time ago.
Yeah, you're crushing us now. And then when I went to sign the papers to get the house, I just got this gut feeling in my stomach where I was like, something's wrong. And so in the end, I pulled out and I got in touch with the hospital. And I just thought, you know what, maybe I'm in a position now where I could actually give back. So I bought myself a bicycle for £50 out of the newspaper. It was one of the worst bikes known to man. And then I ended up cycling 14,000 miles.
Oh my goodness.
Around the world from Bangkok, Thailand, back to Gloucester.
How did you do that? How does that even work?
You just keep pedaling. Like you just like you just keep pedaling.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
How does that work? You just keep pedaling.
You
just keep going. And there you in some kind of mountains. I went and got an array of pictures. I found anything I could find of you. Do you even remember this picture? Is that the bike?
That's actually really close to Afghanistan. So
my goodness.
I ended up being caught on the Afghanistan border. I got caught in a big war zone, and
I bet you did.
Yeah, I got shot at because it was a bit silly, but I put my camera on to film the moment of being shot at, but it fires off red lights, like flashing lights. So I got shot at. Luckily I wasn't hit. I've got to say, Scott, I shared it on YouTube. Great for fundraising.
I bet it is. All right, I have to tell you, I'm in Vegas this past week. I'm working some basketball games. There's a big tournament with some elite teams like North Carolina and Michigan State, UCLA, Texas, some of our better basketball teams. And I got 2 games one day, 2 games the next. I'm busy. And I have a football game the following day in another town. And I'm like, I get a text from my good friend William McIntyre. He says, hey, I got a story for you. And I'm right during the middle of the game. So I'm like, okay, let's talk later. And then I'm like, he kind of was, I said, send me info. So in between games, I'm reading about it. And I'm like, well, this is interesting. He saw you running. He was on his way to Bunkie, Louisiana to visit his in-laws. And you're running on Highway 190, which is parallel to I-10 for those of you who don't know. Opelousas goes all the way to Baton Rouge, the highway, and you take the story over from there because here we are.
Well, yeah, so William and Tiki, complete and utter strangers, they just turn up at the side of the road and they're like, what the hell are you doing? And they was like, we just
Tiki McIntyre, his wife.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then they're like, what do you do? We just drove past and Googled run across America with red cape.
Right.
And you popped up. And so then they kind of said, well, where are you running? And I said, well, I'm heading to New Orleans. And it turns out that they live right next to New Orleans Children's Hospital.
Children's Hospital, which is one of your causes. How crazy and how perfect is that?
Yeah. I went there yesterday to meet the kids, and it was amazing. Such a special spot.
Well, it is, and they do great work here, as do most of the children's hospitals across the country, and I'm assuming the world as well. What is your goal? Tell me, so people that know, where'd you start this particular run and where are you ending up? Give us the map around the country.
Yeah, so I've done all those adventures cycling around the world and stupid other stuff. So this adventure on its entirety is I started up in Washington State.
Right.
And then the goal is to run 230 marathons. So I'm about 138 marathons in. And,
so do you do these per day? You do 26 in a day?
Yeah, sometimes more, sometimes less. I just give everything I've got.
And give what you got. Yeah.
I've got a 1-year visa, and then the goal is to make it all the way to the state of Maine. So I've kind of done a really long route. So I've gone from the Washington State down to LA, then I've cut across.
So you get to LA. Okay, so this is like a big U you're doing.
Yeah, like a big smiley face.
A big smiley face, even better. So you get to LA, and then how How hard is Texas, by the way? That's a long state, brother. I've driven through it a few times to go to LA back when I was younger.
There was an 80-mile stretch of nothing.
Nothing.
Like not even like a tree. Just nothing. And I was out there on that stretch, and I was running at night because it was so hot.
Oh my gosh.
And this car pulled in at one moment, and the window went down, and it was like 11 o'clock at night. And she said, are you running that way? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, I think I better just let you know that we spotted a mountain lion down there on the side of the road. Oh my goodness. And I'm like,
a mountain lion?
Yeah. I'm like, what does that mean? And she's like, I don't know. And I was like, well, I don't know either. And then she said, okay, well, good luck, and drove off.
You didn't think about asking her for a ride at that point?
I did think about running back,
yeah.
But in the end I rationalised it and got a little penknife, but I don't know why I got a penknife. I would have probably done more harm to me than the mountain lion.
Mountain lion would have had that for breakfast.
Yeah.
But do you have any other complications? Because I have to imagine, you're on the road, you're running at night, you're running in the middle of nowhere, nobody knows who you are. I mean, you've probably seen a lot of good in people, but I'm sure you've had some trouble too.
Yeah, I mean, there was one moment where, because I've got no support crew, and
there's a cop right here. What happened here?
Yeah. so that was on the as I was running, it was near the Mexican border. And,
oh my gosh.
And I was running at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and some guy appears and he shines a light on me and he goes, what are you doing out here? And I was like, I'm running across America. And I thought, he's never going to believe that at this time of where I am.
No, it's hard.
And then he said, well, I'm just going to say, he said, I'll be surprised if the police don't come out and pay you a visit. I said, no, I'll be fine. 5 minutes later, a whole SWAT team, 4 vehicles turn up.
So what do they think you were?
Bikes.
I mean,
yeah, well then the guy, like, he gets my passport, and then they're like, what's in the stroller? You know, and I'm like,
what is in the stroller, by the way? I think we all want to know.
Well,
what is in there?
There's no drugs in there. You know,
well, it's a tent. They thought you were a mule or something?
Yeah, I think maybe I was a drug runner.
Oh my God. Okay, I get it now. Like you're in the cartel or something?
Yeah, but the weird part is, because it was so hot, I had a fluorescent, like, netted vest on and nothing else. Yeah. So I looked more like Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, even better. I mean, you should have told, hey, I'm Freddie Mercury. No, he's passed away, son. We know that.
Good job I didn't listen to you.
Yeah, what's your next step? What are you going from here? You're now in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you're going to go down the coast, and then you're going to go back up to Maine or something? How does this work?
So I'm running next to Mississippi, Alabama, and then to Jacksonville,
Have you ever been
Florida.
to any of these states?
Never.
I would imagine Mississippi, a lot of S's in that. Alabama, interesting people.
Yeah.
And then you get on to Florida. Make sure you spend a lot of time on that Florida Gulf Coast, because the water is gorgeous. The sand's even better.
Yeah.
And I don't care what beaches you've been on in the world, these will be the best you've ever been on. Because I grew up with these beaches thinking the rest of the world had them, and they don't. Because now that I've been all around the world, the best beaches in the world are literally the ones I grew up with. And you'll see, the sand in particular is this white, fluffy, sugary sand that is unbelievable.
Maybe I'll just pack in the run when I find a really nice beach and just be like, you know what, bugger going all the way to the state of Maine.
Tell me about the families that take you in. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it just happens, like with William and his wife.
And here's one in particular.
Yeah, Tiki. People just turn up. I've got a live tracker going like 24/7, so people can see exactly where I am.
Yeah, how can people track you? Because I only have a minute left. I want to know how they can do that.
Yeah, so if you just Google Jamie McDonald,
right,
or you can go on social media as Adventure. I'm Adventure Man.
Right. This is amazing.
Yeah, I've got one superhero costume for the entire year.
You're wearing your Children's Hospital, your pendant. And how can people donate to this cause? Because this is all going to a good cause. You're taking care of others by doing this. So tell me how people can do that.
Yeah, if you put Google Jamie McDonald, put donate. The donate button will link you to the charity, and then we're fundraising. While in Louisiana, we're fundraising for New Orleans Children's Hospital, and we're going to be putting donations to kids that don't have insurance. And with this, you know, for me, it's about giving back, just because I spent most of my life in hospital.
Yep.
And there should never be no stone unturned, and every single sick kid, whether they have insurance or not, should get support and help.
You're inspirational, my friend. You
and
really are.
And a first-class idiot as well.
Yes. Yeah. By the way, New Orleans, I hope we're treating you right. I mean, I hope you come back when you have time to hang out. I'm going to give you something you can go eat before you start running.
Awesome.
And I don't know if you like to run with a little wine, but that's got the best wine list in town. That's called Chez de la Chaise.
Chez de la Chaise.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a shirt that you can run underneath with because you'll never want to put anything else on. It's called Task Performance. Feel that. Soft.
I'll tell you
There's
what.
no polyester in
that's
there.
Impressive.
That's bamboo cotton fiber, my friend.
Wow.
Jamie McDonald, check him out. Please go online and donate. Do the right thing. Hey, he's doing this for a good cause. Our children need this. There's so many out there that need our help. And Jamie, let me thank you, brother.
Awesome. Thank you,
We're going to have
really
you sign a ball proudly. I know I got my pen back, and I'll have to do it once again. I can't find my pen. All right, here it is. Here it is.
Come on, don't be
I got to be better at
Come
this.
on, here we go.
You know what? We're going to put you on the Tulane thing. William McIntyre's a big Tulane guy. He's the guy you're staying with, Tiki McIntyre. Got to thank them. Good folks. Anyway, hey, thank you. Hey, we're not done. The history of boxing right here. Coming up next, New Orleans boxing. We've had Regis Prograis on. He's a two-time champion right here. But that's boxing that's been going on here for 130 years. Come back. We'll check it out right here on Primetime Sports. Welcome back to Primetime Sports. Hey, I got to thank my man, Mason Ginsberg. Finally made it down from Chicago to be on the show to talk Pelicans. And man, how about our guy, Jamie McDonald, the adventure man? What a story he's got to tell. Hey, but we got a New Orleans story for you. A very interesting one. I got a Loyola grad, a De La Salle grad here. But more importantly, he's a New Orleans historian and author. He loves the sports, the old-time sports. Does a lot of stuff with baseball. He's going to have a great baseball book coming up from the Pelicans and back to the old school Pelicans back in the day. And then some baseball, the way it started in New Orleans and in South Louisiana. But right now, we're bringing him on for boxing. Boxing has got a little bit of a resurgence here, as you know. Regis Prograis has had a couple championship bouts here the last few months at UNO Lakefront Arena. I, as a youngster, used to go to boxing matches a good bit. I love them. The big ones, Spinks and Ali in '78. Back in '80, I remember it was Roberto Duran losing to Sugar Ray Leonard. A couple of years later, Tommy the Hitman Hearns, Wilfred Benitez. These were big-time bouts in the Dome. Well, boxing had to start way before that in New Orleans. It was the epicenter of boxing right here in the late 1800s. And there was a place called the Olympic Club of New Orleans, which our next guest just wrote a book about. His name is Derby Gisclair. And here it is, and I can't wait. This book is now number 6 on Boxing Books of 2019 that you need to see. That is a list that they put out, 13 top books. It is number 6. I'm telling you what, it's going to be great. Here's my guest, Derby Gisclair. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much, Scott. Great to be here.
It's a unique show I have today. I usually have players and coaches and things like that, maybe some media guys. I went the different route. I went with you because I think this is a great story. I first heard about you because I have a love of baseball myself, and I saw some of the stuff that you were doing and your historian stuff with baseball growing up in New Orleans. But now boxing, tell me how you got into this.
Well, you know, it's such a compelling story because it was around for a very short period of time. Everyone knows about John L. Sullivan and James Corbett.
Yep.
They might know that it was held in New Orleans.
Yeah.
They have no clue where in New Orleans it was held. Now, if you go back and you look, it was on Royal Street between Montague and Clouet in the Marigny.
Yeah.
And if you go out there today...
You're talking about the Centennial Club of New Orleans, right? This is kind of where it is now.
Nope.
But here, show them what we have before, because it was a grand club, and tell us about why this became such a big deal.
Well, you know, this was their 4-story clubhouse. Behind it, in the old cotton yard behind it, cotton press yard behind it, where Dr. Bob's Art Market is today, was their arena.
Right.
Now, if you think today, there's the arena. You can see the interior.
Sure.
Shot. How many people do you think fit into the New Orleans arena?
About 18,000, I guess. 20,000. Yeah, 15. Okay.
15. Okay. This in 1890 held 13,000.
Wow. Wow.
And if you look at the seating arrangement there, and the other shot they had, they showed 4 carbon arcs. They had incandescent light. They had telegraph, telephone, everything you needed, because it was
in 1880s and 1890s. That is remarkable.
Because it was, as you said, the epicenter of back. They had 13 world title fights out of 30 regulation. Out of 30 regulation
That's crazy.
Fights. It's incredible.
Everybody knows about, let's start there, because I know it was the end of what they call the Fistic Carnival. They had 3 straight days of championship bouts leading up to the one you said rightfully that most people have heard about. John L. Sullivan, the guy who said he could whip any man on the planet, against Gentleman Jim Corbett, James J. Corbett. That was the big heavyweight boxing match, and that was the big deal.
Big heavyweight guy, Boston Bully Boy.
Yeah.
How big a guy was he?
Sully.
How big a guy was he? Guess what? He was my size. He's 5'10", 195.
Yeah. Big for the day.
Big for the day, okay?
That's Sullivan on the left, Corbett on the right.
Corbett on the right. Now, Corbett spotted him 25 pounds in this match. And he absolutely epitomized the new wave of boxing, which was scientific boxing. Basically, he would hit you and move before you could counterpunch. And it frustrated the heck out of Sullivan, who was used to just bull rushing you.
Yeah.
And the old days, like we were talking earlier about Jake Kilrain and the bare knuckle fights, those were done under London prize rules, which was more boxing and wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, you hear 75 rounds. Well, if you slipped on the ground and you fell to the ground, the round was over.
Right. Okay.
So you could go, but you also wore spikes on your shoes, so you could spike your opponent if you.
Oh my
wanted
goodness.
To it was a different ball game altogether.
All right, a little more like UFC. All right.
Well, exactly.
Right.
And that came into play later on with the whole evolution.
There's the Gentleman Jim
There's
Corbett.
Gentleman Jim.
Yeah, you see, that's why he was Gentleman Jim. He was more refined.
Well, he was more refined, but he also made more money from his vaudeville theatrical shows than he did from prize fighting.
Interesting.
Okay. That's you're looking at where they got hit and where they got hurt. In terms of, Sullivan took the worst of it for sure. I mean, look at all the spots that Corbett hit him before he could hit back.
Now, Corbett was the underdog, right? He
was the underdog. No one had really ever heard of the guy.
Right, okay.
Now, he had fought here at the Southern Athletic Club, which is on Britannia in Washington.
Okay.
Right across the street from the rink. Which was the old skating rink.
Right.
That odd-looking oblong building there was the old Southern Athletic Club. And that's where Corbett fought Jake Kilrain, as a matter of fact, before he got a chance to go against
You're talking
Sullivan.
about the rink that's near the Commander's Palace? Yeah,
exactly.
right there. Okay, right on Washington and Britannia, right there.
Exactly.
All right.
Very much a gentleman's club. And that was at the heart of how boxing, which was illegal everywhere, how did it get by in New Orleans? Well,
a lot of things got by in New Orleans.
Well, it does, and a lot of it was the police had better things to do than break up boxing matches.
Right.
But you wound up having the legislator change the statutes that said you could have prize fights in the chartered rooms of an athletic club.
Oh, okay.
And so they were thinking, the biggest thing in an athletic club is going to be the gymnasium. So you're going to have 200 or 300 people getting around a 16-foot or a 20-foot ring. And that's not going to be too bad. Well, what the Olympic Club did was in that area that they had available to them in the old cotton press yard, they built an arena. And it kept expanding and expanding until they could hold 13,000
That purse
people.
for $25,000, I mean, you're talking about the late 1800s. That's a lot of cash. $15 tickets, that's a lot of cash back in that day.
Now,
a lot.
But do the economics. $15 tickets, 10,000 people.
Right. Somebody's making money.
And it was the Olympic Club. And
right.
that's what was their undoing eventually, was because the members began to fight over what are you doing with this money? Where did the money go? Who's taking what? And they split off. And so New Orleans not only had one huge arena, but they had 3 huge arenas at one point. And people came from all over the world to fight here. And the international press covered it, and it was a...
Well, let's go to the Kilrain fight you mentioned, because I've been reading up on this, and I said something that this fight ended up being a 75-round bare-knuckle fight, and it had to be within 200 miles of New Orleans, they said. So it was like 104 miles north in Richburg, Mississippi, which is right south of Hattiesburg. Kilrain and was it Sullivan?
Sullivan.
And that was a 75-round match.
75-rounder.
Not even to be confused with the 110-rounder we're going to talk about in a second. But this was outside. You see the picture that looks all nice right there, the people in the trees. It wasn't quite
Spanish
that way.
Moss.
Yeah.
No, that's what it looked like.
This is more of what it was right here.
Toothpick pines and all these mustachioed guys, and in the 100-degree heat in wool coats. Had to be something. But they had bare knuckle fights, and the London prize rules were, like as I mentioned, a combination wrestling and prize fighting. So if we'd clinch, if I got the move on you, I could throw you to the ground.
Kilrain on the left, Sullivan on the right.
I could run you to the ground,
yeah,
give you a little business on the ground,
yeah,
and then the fight was up. Now, the fellow who was the referee for this fight was John Fitzpatrick, later to become mayor of New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
So you had a fellow named Thomas Pye, who took all those aerial or outdoor shots, really, was the father of sports journalism.
What about this 110-round match between Burke and obviously our guy Bowen?
Well, that was 110 pure rounds under Marcus Queensberry rules.
Wow.
Because you see, in London prize rules,
7 hours plus.
7 hours and 19 minutes,
right.
110 rounds. And
Bowen's the main guy, right?
Bowen's the guy.
Yeah.
He was a little. It's a lightweight fight, so he's 135 pounds.
Right, kind of like Regis Prograis.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Heart of a lion, like Regis is. I mean, Regis is a wonderful kid.
Yep.
Kid. I got shoes older than him, but he's a fine young man.
There it is, right there.
And these guys, I mean, by the time you got to the end of the fight, these guys were thinking about having breakfast as opposed to who was going to win the fight. And there was a big controversy as to whether or not to call it a draw or no contest, because under one, all bets are off.
Right.
And all the gamblers are going to be.
1893, look at that.
Exactly.
Hey, I got to go forward because I want to get Jack Dempsey in. Everybody knows Dempsey, and I know the Tunney fight was in Chicago, but Jack Dempsey had a huge presence here in New Orleans.
Different Jack Dempsey.
Oh, we're talking about a different one.
Different Jack Dempsey.
All right, then scratch those other pictures of Jack Dempsey.
The original Jack Dempsey, John Patrick Kelly from New York,
all right, came
down and fought. First time in New Orleans, he fought at Sportsman's Park. Which was the Pelicans baseball park.
Learn something new every day.
And he was called Nonpareil, which he was undefeated in 64 fights.
Oh, wow.
And he came down here and he had the fight with this guy, Bob Fitzsimmons, who they said, well, he's a big, lanky sort of a fellow. He's
long reach, Bob Fitzsimmons. Isn't he? He looks like it from the pictures.
Well, if you look at the picture, he's got these toothpick legs and this bigger upper body.
Yeah.
The upper body came from working in his brother's anvil shop. He was a blacksmith. So he had tremendous power in his hands.
Bob Fitzsimmons.
Fitzsimmons did.
Yeah.
And so Dempsey said, sure, I'll fight him. He's no class. He doesn't really. But this guy could pound you like there was no tomorrow. He was the very first man in history to hold 3 world-class.
Wow.
In different weight classes.
Right.
Okay, and the first one came against Jack Dempsey in New Orleans. It was the 3rd fight at the Olympic Club.
This is so cool. Hey, let's go more now, or not now, but let's take this 60, 70 years, 80 years later when you had Leon Spinks and Muhammad Ali kind of had a rebirth of boxing. I remember being at this fight as a 13-year-old. Phenomenal. Ali won this 3rd title, heavyweight championship, never been won before. That means you had to lose a couple to win them again. But there he was. And then it went on to Sugar Ray, which I'll never forget this, as a 15-year-old. But every 2 years you had a big fight.
Exactly.
In 78, this was the fight. That was in 1980. And then 2 years later, you had Tommy Hitman Hearns against Wilfred Benitez. So boxing had a heyday here back then, too.
Well, it even started even earlier than that. When you look at Ali, you always think of float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, right? The eyes can't hit what the eyes can't see, right?
That's right.
Angelo Dundee never said that about Ali. He said it about Willie Pastrana, a New Orleans boxer here.
All right.
Willie hated to be rough with people, so he'd hit you and dance around and win on points.
He just like Mayweather.
And he was at St. Mary's Italian Gym in the quarter, and his manager said, I can't do anything for him. Angelo, you take him to Miami, and the rest is history.
Right.
He and Ralph Dupas both.
Derby has a book signing and a book he's going to be right there. It's going to be at the Octavia Books on December 5th.
On Octavia Street, corner of Laurel, on December 5th at 6 p.m.
Yeah, the 500 block. I'm going to go. I'm looking forward to this because I love the old school New Orleans stuff. You get the history of New Orleans, people. And plus, he also has a book coming out with the history of baseball in New Orleans. And like I said, he's an historian and author. This is the 6th ranked book in the country about boxing, maybe the world, that you should see. But here, I got a couple of gifts for you.
Oh, thank you.
You know, this is a place called Shays de la Shays. It's uptown on Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Yeah.
And we have a shirt. Have you ever heard of Task Performance?
Oh, yeah.
Have you?
That's Al.
Al Andrews.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, here, Derby, I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Anything else you got? You good?
Oh, we're great.
We're going to sign this ball. You got a lot of Tulane connection, and we're going to get that pen somewhere. I got it here. I'll find that pen eventually. All right. Here it is. Here it is. I knew I had it somewhere. All right. Give me a little signature on that Tulane ball. And I appreciate you, man. That is Derby Gisclair.
Perfect.
Hey, you got to thank everybody. Mason Ginsberg. And I want to thank Adventure Man Jamie McDonald. What a unique show we had. And, of course, Will Hill, the Redhead Tsunami, and Naila Jones, and all my good friends at WLAE and CST. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week on Primetime Sports.